Good evening. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to a BW dialogue, a BW Businessworld dialogue. Today we are talking about something that has been impacting us even more in the last 18 months. It has transformed the way we do our daily chores, in the way we live, in the way we work, in the way we build businesses, in the way we make impact. And COVID has been the chief transformation officer or the chief acceleration officer for this growing trend. Today, we are going to talk to Mr. Nitin Seth, who is the CEO of Incedo Inc. But today, we're talking to him about his book, The 7 Building Blocks of Successful Digital Transformation, Winning in the Digital Age. I'll hold up a copy of the book and let me welcome Mr. Nitin Seth, who's based in the US, to hold up the book. So congratulations, Nitin. And it is everyone's wanting to transform in the digital age, to build a digital company and a digital enterprise in the technology world. So along with me is my editorial colleague Vasudha Mukherjee. Me and Vasudha over the next 50 odd minutes will talk to Nitin about how to win in the digital age, how to build a digital enterprise, how to build a futuristic enterprise, and what are the 7 building blocks of successful digital transformation. Now, before we do that, let me tell you that Nitin, apart from being an entrepreneur now, has had a deep experience in the domain that he's written a book, which is in creating teams, creating companies, creating projects. He's had 25 plus years leadership roles in world-class firms like McKinsey and Fidelity. He's also worked at Flipkart and now does a lot of client work in Incedo. Let me start by asking Nitin. Nitin, first of all, how have been the last 18 months for you, both personally and professionally?
Thanks, Annurag and Vasudha. Very nice to talk to both of you. The last 17, 18 months, Annurag, have been an absolute roller coaster. So when COVID hit us, around March last year, the first emotion was that of a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear. But very quickly that translated into a very strong resolve, because running a technology services business, we had no option but to move all of our work remotely, and that happened splendidly. We were able to do it with very high productivity and customer satisfaction. So then there was a spirit of resolve, there was a spirit of action, there was a spirit of confidence, there was a spirit of change, where we were changing very rapidly, we were taking a lot of actions and generally seeing very positive outcomes from that. And then this year, when we thought all is going to be fine, and we were just ready to open our offices, the second wave hit, and that was a very, very sad event. We lost a lot of colleagues. It was something which was really a heartbreaking event in my 25 years of professional life. I think it was among the darkest moments that I saw. When you see so much suffering and you don't see really way out. But again, in that kind of moment, it was amazing to see how people stepped up, how the organization stepped up, when the systems around us failed, how people came together to step up. And again, it was from that kind of a low moment also emerged hope. So the last 17, 18 months have been an absolute roller coaster, and I think we have both professionally and personally, and also I think life has got merged. Professional and personal aspects have got merged. It's seen a whole range of emotions. Annurag, you're on mute.
Yes. Thank you, Nitin. And I understand it was a mixed bag. There was loss of lives and livelihood. And I hope there's no third wave either in the US or India or anywhere in the world. But now let me ask you, what has changed in the post-COVID world? We're not post-COVID in a true sense. We're still in the pandemic. But what has changed in the last 18 months? What has changed for good and for permanent? And what has changed temporarily? And what is not good? Give us a sense before we dive into your book.
Yeah. I think there are a couple of things that have changed, and also from my perspective, of given that I'm this whole digital space. First is that is that the assumptions around what needs to be done in person and what can be done remotely have changed quite dramatically. If 18 months back you had asked not just me but anybody that can most of your business be done remotely, the answer would have been absolutely no. So that's something and especially those of us who end up doing a lot of client work or in sales, we're just so used to hopping on a plane all the time, and a lot of those assumptions have changed that there is so much more you can achieve remotely, and in many cases it is more productive. The other big thing is, and you mentioned that in your opening comments, that digital, if ever there were any cobwebs or there were any assumptions around digital adoption or let's say a technology like cloud, over the last 12, 18 months, it's all of those questions have completely disappeared, because water finds its own course. When everything moved remotely, companies just had to adopt. So digital as a trend has got a very, very strong push, and I think that's a secular, sustained push. I think what is not good is that, and I think it's just we're beginning to see more of this. That end of the day, we are social animals. We need to have that interaction, and there is a lot to be said about that in-person interaction. How we get inspired, how we learn, how we transmit culture. All of those things are intangibles, and the remote working has been a big issue in that. And I see mental health is a very big term, but certainly I'm seeing a lot of fatigue. I'm seeing a lot of strain, and that reflects, for different people, it reflects in different ways. So, while there is the comfort of working from home, there is also a certain fatigue and a kind of, if I may use the word claustrophobia, which is also I see setting in, which is not a very desirable thing. I think what you also asked that, what maybe is something which is temporary. The extent to which we today have remote working, and there are many people who are saying, future of work, it's all going to be remote. My view continues to be that there is a lot of value for that human interaction, and I think we will never. I think the fact that remote working is a very legitimate way of working is an absolute secular trend. But I think the extent of it will change. I think that is temporary. I think we will end up in some kind of a hybrid working model.
Absolutely. And the title of your book is Winning in the Digital Age. It's clearly a digital age. That's the defining term for our lives today. Now, first of all, why this title? Why this book now? And what is the impact you're looking to create through this book, and on whom?
Yeah. So look, as you said, we are in the digital age. Yeah, we are in the digital age. That is the defining mega trend of our times. The World Economic Foundation also defines this as this is the fourth industrial revolution, and the fourth industrial revolution is called the digital age. So these are the times we are in, and there are billions, in fact trillions of dollars being spent on this thing called digital, whether it is in startups, whether it is in transforming existing businesses. Estimates are that over the next 3 years, close to $7 trillion are going to be spent on digital. That's like roughly 3 times the GDP. It's a very big number. But what has always intrigued me and bothered me is that there is something like a 70% failure rate on digital initiatives, at least 70%. That's probably a conservative estimate. Many estimates say 80% of digital initiatives do not realize their full potential. And that is something which has always bothered me. And that is really, it is this gap that I'm looking to address through the book. That, wow, digital age of opportunity, a lot of investments being made. However, there is A lot of that is not realizing its potential. And can we bridge this gap? Can the success rate from 30%, can we move it to 50, 60, 70%? What a deep impact it will make. That really is what is the motivation for me. And now, who is this book targeted towards? And there are two different audiences. When I perhaps started, it was more targeted towards the executive, the business reader, because this is a topic, it's not just for a technologist. Any business, anybody needs to understand this. But as I progressed, as my thinking progressed, it was clear to me that digital is not just about digital transformation, and this is not just something which impacts the business world. It impacts everybody. Yeah. And I think there is a broader thing which I feel, which is for the young professionals. The young professional, somebody who is going through engineering college or a business school or whatever, and is looking to is not going to have a career in this digital age. What does it mean for them, and what does it mean for them to be successful in this new world? I think that is what I would really, if for the young generation, it can make some difference. I think that is what I would really see as a success of this book.
Thank you so much. Clearly, and while I'll get into the chapters and the sections in the book and the themes in the book, I just want to ask you, talk about failure. Now, today, digital startups are a lot about success. Look at the listings of startups in this country, in our country, India. Look at their valuation. Look at the enthusiasm. The Nazara IPO was oversubscribed 185 times or 175 times. Look at the Zomato IPO. Look at the valuation of Zomato. So clearly, there is value being created. What is being asked is the value right in terms of what the stock markets are valuing it? And you have two views on that. A lot of people feel that the values are super high. And then the counter argument is that Amazon listed 20 years back, and look at where it is. So clearly there was a validation in what was Amazon value 20 years back. But in Amazon's case, there was a clear path to profitability, a visible path to profitability. So while I'll come to your book in the chapters, I want to ask you, what do you think about the valuation of these startups on Indian bourses?
There is, value is nothing, never a right value, Anurag, is my view. Either, it will be overvalued or it will be undervalued. You never, it's never a right or a fair value. My view is that there is a lot of hype. There is a lot of hype. We are in a hype cycle, and the valuation of some of these businesses does seem high to me. I think there are very good reasons to say that the value should be high. Yeah, because the markets, the value of any entity is driven by two factors: growth and profitability. Yeah, and the market tends to overweight on growth, and that's really what is happening. So certainly the value should be high, but is it fair? Is it too high? And to me sometimes it feels too high.
I said right. At least you've been very direct in your answer, and haven't. So there are two camps. Only time will tell us what is the right value. Are they overvalued, or are they rightly valued or undervalued? Now your book has multiple sections. It has seven, because you call your book the 7 building blocks of successful digital transformation. It has 7 themes. It has sub-chapters. Out of the 40 plus chapters in your book, which is your favorite chapter, or which is your favorite section? And within that, what is your favorite chapter?
Yeah, my favorite section is probably around organization transformation. So digital is like this big elephant. There's so many different parts to it, and people see different aspects of it. For some, digital is about startups. For some, digital is about AI or cloud. So they see different aspects of it, and they feel this is the reality. And what I've tried to do is to kind of bring the big picture of digital, that what are the different dimensions you need to think about, and that's where the 7 building blocks come in. If I were to draw this, this picture of the 7 building blocks, if I were to draw them to scale, the 5th building block, which is around organization transformation, will be the largest. Yeah, because if today I look at that 70% failure rate, and why is that happening? The biggest contributor to that is around the organization structure, culture, processes. That is the biggest issue. Yeah. So I think that is the most important part of this debate. Yeah. So that's kind of part one of your answer to your question. It's about what is my favorite chapter. It's actually not in that section, but in the next section on leadership. There is I talk about mastering duality. Mastering duality as a very, very key differentiating competency for leaders in the digital age, and that's something I feel very strongly about, and I think that's also something I feel is
and build on. I read the chapter, so I know. But for our viewers and readers, give us more granularity when you say mastering duality.
See, the digital age is all about paradoxes. You have very contrasting set of objectives which you have to achieve at the same time. You have growth and profitability, you have strategy, execution, short term, long term, you have customers and you have employees. Yeah, you have the man and the machine, you have data and you have intuition. On every dimension that you can think of, you have a paradox. You have seemingly contradictory objectives, but you have to meet both. We are not in the world of trade-offs. Yeah, you have to meet both. It's kind of like the yin and the yang. Yeah, there are two different aspects. And as human beings, we tend to struggle with that, because we like to simplify. We like to have simplifying assumptions, and this ability to manage duality at the same time, I think is a very foundational characteristic of the digital age. Yeah. Now you can translate that into more practical business terms as well, and I talk about the 2-speed implementation approach for digital transformation and so on. But I think it's a meta point. Given the characteristics of the digital age, of so many paradoxes, so much complexity, I think the ability to manage those paradoxes at the same time is a very key skill.
Thank you so much, Nitin. Now let me start with your first chapter. Your first section is on the new rules of business. Give our viewers and readers, what are these new rules of business?
Yeah, so first let me talk about why the new rules. The 70% failure rate. Why is this happening? And because it's not that the companies going through are like not competent. The leadership is not competent. See, the underlying the principles or what is happening in this digital age is very different. Yeah, it's like cricket. That if you have a team which is used to playing a 5-day test match and you suddenly throw them into T20. Even if they are the best players, what will happen? They will not be able to deal with it, and that is what is happening. The world has changed. That's how the world has changed, and there are many dimensions in which you need to now have a very new approach to management. So, for example, I talk about 8 new rules of management, but let me just perhaps talk about 1 or 2 of them. So, strategy. Yeah. So, traditionally, strategy has been the anchor for a business. It has been the anchor for a business, and there is a certain process of going through strategy that you look at the market, you make your strategy, you have a corporate strategy, you translate that into more functional strategy, you get to your plans, you execute, you have some KPIs, you track. Yeah, that's what you follow. Now, both the notion of strategy, the importance of strategy, and how you do it is completely different for the digital age. In a world which is changing very, very dynamically, a very well laid out strategy can actually be like chains. It can shackle you. Yeah. Like Muhammad Ali famously said that everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. And in the digital age, you get punched in the face all the time. So strategy can actually be a problem. Number two, the traditional cycle between strategy leading to execution is not right for the digital age because it's changing so rapidly. So, you have an agile strategy, you have a light strategy, and then you execute. You do a number of initiatives. Some work, some don't work. What works, you do more of. What doesn't work, you kill. So by connecting back from your execution, you actually get clarity on your strategy. So instead of a linear relationship between strategy and execution, it's like a iterative or a circular relationship. So, I can go on and talk about many more aspects, but this is just, one of the very fundamental things which I think is very different, and how all of us have been trained. All of us have been trained around strategy in a certain way.
Now I know where your next chapter comes. There is a chapter where you say, when you talk about the digital age, when you want to build transformational enterprises in digital age, you got to play offense, not defense. Now, since you talked about Muhammad Ali, I figured out where that inspiration and the name of the title chapter came from. But give our viewers and readers, when you say play offense, not defense, give us the granularity on that.
Yes. I'll do it at two levels, Anurag. That's a great question. We are in this world, which is changing very rapidly. So if you are following what is to be done, you're already lost. Yeah. The only way you can win in this digital world, I often call it the VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, is if you are shaping the future. Yeah. So and that is offense. If you're waiting, if you're playing a waiting game, then you have already lost, because it is changing so rapidly. Yeah. So that's kind of one perspective to it. The second perspective to it is specifically in a technology context, that most enterprises, especially the legacy enterprises, are constantly bogged down by what they often call tech debt. Yeah. That they are so far behind what needs to be done that a lot of the spend, the mindset, the attention is on catching up, and there's a lot of fixing, there's a lot of incremental BAU, business as usual type of efforts. The problem is that you never catch up. Because the water line keeps on rising. And you're always trying to desperately catch up. Yeah. And so you have to take a different approach. You also end up doing that. I think my submission is because there is a lack of vision. There's a lack of vision of what needs to be done. Yeah, that is offense. Yeah, when you lack vision, you end up doing what is out there. Yeah. So, and today,
lack of focus.
Lack of clarity. It's a lack of clarity of is again the point about shaping the future. You don't have clarity on that, so you end up kind of rearranging deck chairs on a sinking Titanic. And now the good thing is that today technology enables you to play offense. Yeah, digital technology enables you to play offense, and we can get into the details around some of the technology aspects. But like a cloud-based architecture is a way of playing offense. That can be, and I think you used some words right in your introduction, that today business transformation has really become digital transformation. Digital is a way of transforming your business, and digital transformation, a very large driver of that is the cloud. Yeah. So, there are many moving parts, but there is a way, where, you can move with a lot more conviction, and you have a way of transforming your stack and not just keep on tinkering around.
Thank you so much. Now, you talk about blockchain going behind the hype to create sustainable businesses and sustainable business models in another chapter. In my view, blockchain is really a game changer, and you talk about the same in your book. Give our viewers and readers on why you say it and the transformative nature of blockchain?
Yeah, see, blockchain to my mind is perhaps there's a lot of conversation around AI. And it absolutely it makes a lot of sense. But blockchain is the much bigger disruptor. Yeah. See, what is blockchain? Blockchain is a distributed ledger. Yeah. And what does that allow you to do? That brings trust in transactions, and it takes out the friction or the tax or the cost at different points of any transaction. Yeah, because you don't need to validate. Yeah. So now that is very foundational. If you look at the entire banking value chain, yeah, what is it that the bank is charging you for? Yeah, or you look at buying a property, you pay a certain tax. What is that for? That is for a validation. Now, with the blockchain technology, and it's just we're taking a couple of examples, but entire value chains can be redrawn, and there's a dramatic possibility of a dramatic improvement in efficiency. Yeah. Now the challenge with blockchain is that you can't do it in a piecemeal fashion, because it is about the end-to-end transaction, and that end-to-end is not just within the enterprise, it is across the ecosystem and a lot of parts of a value chain that no one player is controlling. Yeah. So doing this is not easy. Yeah. And it's kind of, so to my mind, blockchain is something which it's not like a quick fix. Yeah. It's not a quick fix. With AI, we have a lot of this terminology around use cases. So blockchain is a lot more fundamental than that. It will take more time. But when the impact begins to happen, it will be a bit sudden. Because suddenly you will see value chains beginning to shift. Yeah. And I talk about the hype because so much of the conversation on blockchain has been defined by cryptocurrency and all of that. And you then again, to one of your earlier questions, you get into that hype zone. And that hype actually takes away from the huge, the fundamental nature of blockchain.
Now, I'll ask you my last two questions before I begin, Vasudha. First is your favorite chapter, as you said, about rebuilding organizations with a digital culture, to build a digital culture. How does one do that? For example, I acquired a traditional media company. This is the 41st year of the company. I acquired it in the 34th year. And we've been able to have some success now after many, many years. And COVID again has been a catalyst in that, so to say. But I understand the change of culture is very important. And since you've written a specific chapter about it, I would like you to dwell on that.
Yeah. See, before we talk about how you change the culture, let me spend a few moments on what is a digital culture, or what are some aspects of it. End of the day, a culture, I don't think you can say there is a generic culture. Every enterprise, has to find it on its own. But I think there are some dimensions, which are important. So I think one dimension of a digital culture is just speed. Yeah, we talked about the velocity in this digital age, the VUCA world. So speed is a very important dimension. Creativity and innovation is a very important dimension. We just talked about one of the new rules of business, that you have to innovate. You can't, you have to shape the future. So creativity is a very important aspect. Having a technology DNA is a very, very important aspect, because technology is no more a support function, not even an enabler. It is the core of how you think about your offering. Yeah. So these are, there are many more things I can talk about, but these are some of the key things which are important and which I think enterprises struggle with. Where there is a change management challenge. Yeah. Now, culture is not defined not by what you put on walls. Yeah. It is driven by what you do. Yeah. So culture is, what people do when nobody is watching. Yeah. Now, how do you inspire that? Now, there is something to be said about, I believe, I'm a believer in that, of defining your values very clearly. the foundation of culture are values. What is it that you value? And if you need to be able to articulate that. If you're not articulated that, then how do you expect that others will read your mind? Yeah. So defining your values. Then the second part is about role modeling. Is role modeling by the leaders. Yeah, because and I think that's one of the big hacks of being a leader, that you're always being observed. People will always observe you, and that role modeling is very important. There is another aspect I would like to call about, which are moments of truth. Yeah, you can do some things 99% of the time, but that one time, when it is a really critical situation, is when it matters. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player ever. He doesn't have the maximum number of baskets in NBA history. No, he doesn't. Because he was the best ever at taking the buzzer shot. Yeah, that a moment of truth, how you respond, how you act. Because at moments of truth, when we are really pressurized, COVID, you asked a question, was such a moment of truth. Yeah. What is your response? Tends to define the culture.
Okay, my last question before I bring in Vasudha. Now you talk about your 7 mantras for success. I want to go more philosophical. Before I bring in Vasudha, I would like you to share your 7 mantras for success. And you've gone on to give advice to young professionals in the book, which is in chapter 7. But give us your 7 mantras for success.
See, my fundamental belief, is that all of us as human beings have got immense potential. Yeah, immense potential. And, we are operating at only a fraction of that potential. Yeah. So there is, whether we are operating at 1% or 5% or 10%, we can debate that. But there is certainly a huge headroom. Yeah. And that's really the foundation of my beliefs, and that, life is about how do you kind of keep on raising your game, that how do you realize a lot more of your potential. And that's where the 7 mantras come from. Now, some of the key ones, the first is to think big, and take risks. Yeah. So you have only one life, why kind of, squander it on mediocrity, think big, innovate, take risks. Now, the second mantra along with that is that that's a good thing to say, think big, but you will not achieve anything, without real competence. Yeah, without real competence. And then that's where you have to, is the soul persist in the pursuit of excellence. Yeah. You have to, to excel, you have to persist. It doesn't come without hard work, and it is about going beyond the pain barrier. Whenever you're doing something worthwhile, you will feel pain and you will feel like giving up. So that ability to go beyond the pain barrier. Yeah. Building relationships. That, when I was younger, I used to, it's about setting goals, working hard, blah, blah, blah. And over a period of time, I've realized that, look, as human beings, it's, relationships are just so important. It is, of course, trust is such a big factor in success, in professional success. But it is not just about that. So the value of building long-term relationships. Humility. Now, the biggest problem with success is that you get arrogant. And you stop listening, you stop learning, and that is where it is the beginning of the end. So the only antidote for ensuring success is humility, which will keep you going. And finally, integrity. Always trying to do the right thing. And in a complex world that we are in, it is even more important, because integrity is like this glass mirror that once, it's broken, it can never be put back together. Yeah. So I probably missed one or two, but yeah, those are some of the things that I feel are very important.
Congrats, Nitin. I'll hold up again the cover of your book, Winning in the Digital Age. I recommend it. It has a complete framework. It is real, and it is written by a person who's done it. So really a book I recommend. I would get Vasudha to take the next set of questions forward. with you, Nitin. Vasudha, all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Batra, and welcome, Nitin. Thank you so much for joining us today and speaking to us about your book, which obviously has a winning title already, Winning in the Digital Age. I just want to go back a little bit, and you start your book off by talking about the VUCA world, and also all the ways it has changed, the CIO perspective, CEOs, and how HR is like leading this change. Now we know the HR world was completely disrupted during this pandemic, but I want to hear from you. How has this VUCA world changed, and how can the HR lead this change?
Look at the foundations or what are the change that is happening in this VUCA world of the digital age. While it is driven by technology, most of the complex factors are around people, around organization transformation. We talked about, Dr. Batra had asked me the question around what's my favorite building block, and I talked about organization transformation. So it's actually very paradoxical that technology world, seemingly it's about technology, but the bottleneck is all around people and organization, and that's where HR really comes in, because a lot of what needs to be done to succeed is how do you redesign the organization so that it moves with a lot more speed. There is a lot more of cross-functional collaboration, so there is something around structure, but we know that things happen not just because of the structure, but because of the culture. So how do you really influence the culture? And we briefly spoke about it. Yeah. And then it gets down to culture is really driven by the individuals. Yeah. So it gets down to how do you influence the individuals, both the leaders, because I think the bottleneck are the leaders. How do leaders go through, there's a lot of talk about agile. Yeah. And agile is not just about agile programs or agile delivery. It is an agile mindset. Yeah. And sometimes I get really, I really laugh, that, sometimes companies that talk the most about agile can end up having the most non-agile mindset. So how do you change the mindset of leaders? This is the time when it is really about developing entrepreneurial leaders. How do you do that? So all of this points to a very, very strategic role for HR. Now, the challenge is that historically, HR has played kind of like a support role. Yeah. And there is a need to very significantly upgrade HR so that it can truly be a strategic partner for the CEO in this transformation journey. It's going to spawn like an incredible wave of entrepreneurship in India. And I think that's just going to lift everything. It's going to lift the economy, it's going to lift the society, it's going to lift the country. So that's something which I am very, very excited about. And we spoke about sustainability. I think over the next 10 years, the topic of sustainability is going to become way, way, way more critical. It has always been important, but it has perhaps not been urgent. I think COVID is a reminder, yeah. But I think this topic of sustainability at all levels, individual, corporate, social, more broadly, I think the topic of sustainability is going to become super, super urgent and important.
Thank you, Nitin. I'm just going to ask you one more question before concluding this interview. Now, Dr. Batra already asked you what your 7 mantras for success was. 7 is clearly an important number in this book. Also, you have 7 sections, 7 mantras, which is all great. But you also have a part in your book in which you wrote about lessons you wish you had learned in business school. I'm not going to ask you to give away the punchline, but what are some lessons you wish they would teach in business school now?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear you properly, Vasudha. Yeah.
The part
in your book,
yes, in your book you mentioned lessons that you wish you had been taught in business school. And I was asking you, what do you think are some lessons you think should be taught in business school right now?
Yeah. See, I think first is, to me, I would put it in kind of 2 broad buckets. The first bucket I would say is problem solving. That we in business schools, we teach a lot of finance and marketing and operations and strategy and so on and so forth. But underlying all of this is problem solving. Is problem solving, and I wish problem solving is taught how to think and how to process in a more it's not just about statistics. It is not just about doing a maths course. It is about developing your core problem solving skills, and in problem solving there are some core frameworks: 80-20, risk return, these are compounding factor. These are things which are so foundational, and I think that's one kind of bucket, problem solving, and the key concepts of it, which I really wish there is a lot more focus on. Second is on the people aspect, understanding yourself, understanding others. So, and we have talked about relationships earlier in this conversation as well, and that's when I joined McKinsey, somebody said in my induction lecture that the path to success is that either you need to know something or you need to know someone. And I think it was so profound. It was so profound. And this whole thing about knowing someone, building relationships, I think is a very, very important aspect. And the key to building relationships is also knowing yourself. So those are the two buckets that I think those are invaluable life skills, and there isn't enough formal time spent on it.
Thank you so much, Nitin, for joining us today. This has been such an insightful discussion, and thanks for sharing your book with us and coming on our platform to speak with us directly and answering all these questions so wonderfully. It was really a pleasure to speak to you. Audience members, if you have missed any part of this discussion, you can go and watch it on our BW Business World YouTube channel. You can watch it on our BW Business World website page, on our LinkedIn, on our Facebook. It's all going to be available. You can go watch and get some tips and tricks from Nitin himself. We have Nitin Seth here with his book, Winning in the Digital Age, 7 Building Blocks of Successful Digital Transformation. Yes, with that beautiful cover.
Thanks, Vasudha. Thanks for really enjoyed this conversation with you and with Annurag. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation.